Now, I'm going to be lying to you if I said I didn't buy this partially out of FOMO, but I'm going to say that I bought it as a scientific experiment to kind of see, kind of compare and contrast the old and the new, the SH Monster Arts, the Hiya, kind of see what the deal is with what a lot of people consider to be one of the best action figures for Godzilla on the market. Um, hmm. So I've had about an hour to mess around with this figure, posing it around, using the accessories, kind of getting the hang of it. And before I get into any of my thoughts on this figure, I kind of want to go around or go over why I bought this figure. As most of you know, I don't collect anymore, and the things I do buy are few and far between. So why did I get this figure? Well, I owned a couple of Hiya figures, mostly the 2019 Godzilla in the past, and besides being aesthetically better and more accurate to the movies than the Monster Arts figures, those figures can't pose for shit. And the Muto figure was the only other one I had, and that thing just was not a very good figure. At least I didn't think. So why did I get this? Well, partially a little bit of FOMO, but I also wanted to see what was up with this tail mostly, and the articulation, and just kind of the presence of this figure that a lot of people are talking about when they discuss Hiya, because Hiya is just going crazy right now, at least in a lot of people's opinions, in a lot of people's minds. And so I just kind of wanted to see what I thought about it, because fuck it, why not? It's the internet, people give their opinions all the time. So with all that being said, is this figure really, really good? Is it trash? Is it kind of mid? Well, I guess I'll hold my opinions off to the end, because this is a pretty surprising figure to me, I'll be honest, but we'll get into all that. Taking a nice look at the head, I think this is a very nice head sculpt. I think from certain angles it's a little bit, not totally 100% suit accurate, but I'm not a huge stickler for 100% suit accuracy. As long as it's 95% there to me, or 90% there to me, then I'm fine, and this fits the bill. I think this is a very menacing look for Godzilla, especially with the way they painted the eyes on this version. I know the eyes have been a bit of contention with this figure and the different versions of it since they originally released, but the eyes look great. I think the mouth looks great. It's just a very nice looking figure overall. I think from the side, I don't necessarily like how very pointed the head is and kind of squished it looks from the side profile, but that's just my own opinion. From the front on, or 3/4 profiles, I think this thing looks absolutely amazing, no doubt at all. Moving down to the body, I think, again, kind of the same thing from the front. This figure looks really, really amazing. It's got that width that this suit has, that the 1991 suit had. But from the side, I think it looks a little bit thin. I may just be misremembering the suit, and that's completely possible. But, I don't know, it looks a little bit thin to me, and it looked that way ever since I saw the initial promo pictures for the standard version, years and years ago. I don't know when that was, but... And then the legs, I think, are pretty fantastic as far as I'm concerned. This suit had gigantic legs, very thick thighs, so I think they did a very... I think they did a very good job capturing the very thickness of this design. And then, of course, we have the famous 1991 tail from Hiya. This is a very fun tail to pose. It's definitely the most fun part of the figure, at least in my opinion, when it comes to the articulation. And I think they did a very good job making it feel and look exactly like it does from the movie, although it's a tail. What can you do, really? So all that being said, the paint, I mean, look with your eyes. Charcoal gray. The teeth, eyes, and claws all have their respective bone yellow, bone white coloration. The mouth has a nice fleshy color, but then obviously the main show, the big show of this figure is the dorsal plates being lit up to simulate the heat ray or simulate the glowing spines. You may or may not be able to see just because of my lighting and also my background, but you can see the nice blue sort of ambient lighting that they gave this figure, which is a very nice touch and something that Monster Arts doesn't normally do. And oh, this is a very nice gradient here too, so it's not just like a hard cutoff. But yeah, I love the lighting that they gave for the lighting effect that they gave for both the dorsal plates and also the body. I think it sells the effect very nicely. If there was anything that I would change, I would maybe make the light a little bit brighter, or I would make the coloring a little bit brighter on the body just to make it blend and make it a little bit closer to the actual blue of the dorsal plate instead of having it look like a completely different color. But I mean, overall, this figure's paint and sculpt is very good. I think the sculpt is a little bit shallow, but I mean that's been mentioned over and over since this figure's release. So moving on to accessories is pretty simple. You have an extra pair of hands. These are actually the hands that came on the figure in the box. I'll show you what the other hands look like. And then here we have the beam effect. I'll be honest, this beam effect, I like the sculpt. It's pretty neat. I'm not the biggest fan of the way this part looks, but I mean, this looks like the Heisei beam. It's whatever. I'm just not the biggest fan of the way that it was painted, if it would fucking focus. Yeah, I'm just not the biggest fan of the way it's painted. I think it's a little bit, it's several shades brighter than the dorsal plates, and I think it doesn't quite capture light the greatest, although maybe it's just the way my lighting is right here at in my setup. But I'll show you what the other hands look like. So this is what the other hands look like. They kind of have this, like, not grip, but they have a bit more of a clench to them, and this is what I remember this Godzilla always looking like. This is what I remember the suit actor Kenpachiro Satsuma kind of doing with his hands a lot when he was acting as Godzilla. So I put these on, but I have had difficult accessories to put on figures. I've had difficult hands, difficult weapons. These have been the most difficult, pain-in-the-ass hands I've ever put on a figure, and I will probably never take these off because I love the way these look. It's a bit of a shame that these were such a pain in the butt to put on, but it is what it is. And then, of course, this is the heat ray figure. It comes with a heat ray. There is a port in the back of the mouth that you may or may not be able to see. You just take the beam effect and shove it in the back of the mouth, and my figure cannot support the weight of the beam, but that is something I'll talk about later when I kind of give my final thoughts on this figure. So I'm not going to go into detail about the articulation. I'm just kind of going to I'm just going to glaze the tail, because this thing is, I'll be honest, this tail is the most articulated tail I have ever seen on an action figure in my life, and this isn't even the most extreme pose that you can do with it. And I mean, this tail is a work of art. I just, credit where credit is due. Hiya made one of the most fun tails to pose probably ever, I'll be honest. The only other tail I can think of that comes anywhere close to this is maybe some of the other Hiya Godzillas, like the GMK, but maybe the 72 Monster Arts and maybe the 75 when that comes out. I say maybe because I don't have either of those. And yeah, I mean, the articulation on this thing is pretty good, but we're going to get into some of my complaints now because, of course, I just have to piss on this thing. So my biggest complaint has kind of to do with joint tolerances, and it's the joint at the head that is making me a little, not quite the happiest camper. As you can see, I'm just lightly flicking this figure, and it is moving up and down with almost no resistance. I am a little disappointed by this because I wasn't planning on having the heat ray like held up in the air, but the fact that it can't even do that is a little bit, it's kind of upsetting to me, just because the head is just like, it's so loose that it's just, it stands out compared to how solid the rest, like the tail and the arms and the legs are. That it stands out more to me because it is just so off-feeling. That and the neck, the base of the neck is like immovable, and when it does move, it moves to the right. I cannot, for the life of me, get it to shift to his right side. It only leans to the left, and it does not want to move to the right for any reason. That twist there is from the waist. So I am probably going to have to do some heat treatment or figure out something to do with this, because this is a little bit upsetting. Or not upsetting, but just disappointing, and it's like, come on, bro. Come on. So I brought in the SH Monster Arts 1995 birth version. This is the Burning Godzilla mold that they've reused 1,000 times, and this is one of my favorite, if not, yeah, it's one of my favorite Monster Arts figures that I have. Definitely a very sentimental piece for me. And kind of the main Heisei Godzilla that we got from Monstars for quite a while until the 89 and 91 figures came out. I do have the 89 figure, but I don't want to bring it out because I'm trying to sell that, and it's in the box and it's in the shipping. So anyway, we're going to use this as a comparison. The biggest thing that I will give to the Monstars, at least in my opinion, is that the sculpt is definitely much nicer. As a lot of people have brought up, the Hiya figure looks to be digitally sculpted, and so a lot of the textures and grooves and scales and all that of the body are much shallower because they weren't textured on a maquette that was then cast and then made molds out of, as opposed to the Monstars where the texture is very, very crisp. It's very, very sharp. Not sharp as like dangerous, but it's very high res basically. And then my own personal preference is that I just preferred this design, like this suit, over the 91. But as far as comparisons, I would say the Hiya figure is the better figure. It is a little bit bigger, which is nice. It is nice and hefty. It's very close to what reminds me of a NECA figure. And then obviously the tail on this thing is just like made by God, basically, because the tail, famously, the tail on this mold is kind of useless. Like, this is the most you can do. And it's like, that's a little bit pathetic as far as I'm concerned, especially in the year 2026. But this is like, this tail is, mwah. And then of course you obviously have the blue atomic breath with this version because this is the heat ray version, whereas this one came with the red. There hasn't been a standard blue atomic breath since the very first release back in 2011. Obviously there have been MonsterVerse Godzillas, and the what was it, the -1 Godzilla had a heat ray as well, but as far as just a standard blue atomic breath effect piece, we haven't had one since 2011, which is kind of ridiculous. So I mean, obviously this is the heat ray version, so it's going to come with a blue one. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to do a little bit of a compare and contrast. I think both these figures are worth having in your collection if you have either one. I'm going to be keeping this one. This is one of the first Monstars I ever got, and I love it to death. And then the Hiya was definitely a curiosity of mine just because of the tail and kind of the hype surrounding this figure. So I just want to bring them in and kind of compare them because these are, as far as just standard basic Godzillas, obviously this is the heat ray, but as far as basic standard Godzillas, these are kind of what people are going to be comparing to each other. So, final thoughts. I think the $55 price point for this figure definitely puts this in a certain context as opposed to something like an SH Monster Arts. Now, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but SH Monster Arts is definitely very expensive, especially nowadays. You can make the argument for whether or not you think those prices are worth it, but when you compare a $55 figure like this to something like the Godzilla 2000 figure from Monster Arts, that was $130. Came with no accessories, and I'll be honest, I think that thing looks like trash. It definitely makes this figure kind of stand out and makes it, easier to buy, I guess. I don't think anyone is going to argue that the tail on this figure is probably the best articulated tail of any Godzilla figure out there. I don't have their GMK figure, but by all accounts, the tail on that figure is just as good as their 91. And SH Monster Arts has a couple of standout tails as well. I do know that their 1972 Godzilla has a very good tail, and then obviously the Shin and Ultimas have pretty good tail articulations, but I think that's pretty much down to the fact that those tails are like 50% of the figure's length. I think the thing that's bringing this figure down for me and making me not totally over the moon about it is probably going to be the head and the neck. The head joint is just so loose that it makes it stand out compared to how solid the rest of the joints are on the figure. And then the base of the neck is just so tight that it can barely look to the right. And it's just one of those things where it's like, it stands out from how smooth and fluid the rest of the joints are. But again, the articulation in the tail, the paint job on the dorsal plates, and the way they made it look like it's lighting up the back, and all the poses you can get this figure in are definitely very, very nice. And I think for $55, this thing is definitely worth the money. And of course I bought this figure out of curiosity, trying to see what the hype was about this figure. And I can definitely see it. I'm not entirely over the moon about it, but I definitely see why people are saying this is one of the best Godzilla figures on the market. A, for the price, the size, and the articulation. And I'm happy to have it. and I have a Heat Ray Godzilla now that has a very good presence on the shelf. Good paint, good articulation, well, very good articulation aside from a couple joints. And yeah, I think this is a very good figure all around, and I would recommend getting it if you have any interest in getting it.